Hi, and welcome to the 10 square metre workshop. If you have a track saw, you may well have looked at parallel guides. These are very useful for cutting up, say, a full sheet of ply, too big to go on your MFT. There are several people supply these, but they can be quite expensive, often over £120. But of course you can make them yourself for an awful lot less. Fancy saving £100? Coming up after this. The main ingredient is this piece of T-track. If you've ever made a table, you may have a bit left over like I have. I'm going to cut this into two 400mm lengths. This will allow me to cut 600mm widths. You may want to make yours a bit longer. The project starts with a 125mm square aluminium plate. 2 to 3mm thick will do. The first step is to cut off the corners as per the drawing, coming up later. Then mark out and cut in two diagonally. Mark and pop the holes on one half, then clamp and drill together. First, drill all four 5mm. Then open up the outer 2 to 6. Deburr and clean up, ready for the next step. Mounting hardware consists of 4 knobs on 6mm shafts, 4 square nuts and 4 washers. The bolts are cut to 12mm in length and assembled as shown, with the domed side of the square nut upwards. This will engage with the slot in the track. The plates should now look like this. Next step is to cut a strip of the aluminium 14mm wide by 140 long. On the centre line, 5mm in from each end, drill a 4mm hole, 4.2 if you have it, and tap both holes 5mm. For each triangle and turn, bolt the end of the strip through one hole, then mark on the centre line through the hole the place for the other bolt. Then drill and tap these 2 new holes. The last 2 holes can now be drilled 5mm and tapped 6. The resultant part is now separated into 4 pieces to produce all the fixings. The final part, the end stop, I 3D printed. The files are on Thingiverse as usual, free to download. However, you could make this out of wood, especially the decking material I've been using recently. You add a knob, the piece made earlier, and a washer, and it all assembles into the stop. With the stops added, the triangular plates are slid onto the end of the T-track. Before we go any further, here are the drawings I promised. Use screen capture. First of all the metal parts, and now the stop block. The final part is the scale. Metallized paper is fine for this because it's going to be mounted in the channel where it's protected. The jigs are slotted onto the track, locked in place, then the slide bar is moved up firmly against the rail and tightened. The scale is placed under the track and set so there's a couple of millimeters showing on the track saw side. This will allow adjustment later. The scale is then cut to length on the end. You do this to both tapes and then take care not to mix them up. The tracks can now be removed and the other end trimmed to length. You may need to trim the width of the tape to match the channel. The tape can now be carefully inserted into the channel. Get it the right way around and it should end up like this. The guides can now be calibrated using either an accurate rule or a known width piece of material. With the value set at the cut and the same value set on the scale, the clamping nuts are tightened in place. It's now calibrated. And that's it. You now have an accurate way of making parallel cuts at a fraction of the cost. And they are easy to remove and store. Well, I hope you found this interesting, and maybe it encourages you to make your own jigs and fixtures. See you next time.